What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPapa, and we're finally talking Japanese Pokemon cards here on the PikaPikaPapa channel. I will tell you, honest to God, hands down, no question, the number one thing I get asked about the most, whether it's in the Discord, whether it's in the comments down below, is for my thoughts and opinions on the Japanese Pokemon space. And I am always very transparent with you all. I will never offer a thought or an opinion on something unless I have some data to back it up. There's no shortage of talking heads out there who are going to tell you what they think or what they feel, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I always want to make sure that when I share an opinion, I want some data. I want something to put on the screen in front of you to say, hey, this is how I feel. This is why I feel that way. And if you feel differently, no worries. Like, that's what this channel is all about. Like, everybody should have their own thoughts and opinions, and I feel like the Japanese Pokemon space is going to be really polarizing. I'm sure some people feel really strongly one way and really strongly the other. And I feel really strongly in two different directions, if that makes sense. I think that there's a segment of the Japanese market which has a lot of concern for me. I'm very scared for it from the long-term perspectives. Then there's another segment of the Japanese market which I think is absolutely awesome, and I think it's going to be really hard to derail it, and I think there's a lot of upside there. So the whole point of this video is to talk about, you know, the English versus Japanese trends, what we're seeing, why I'm so concerned. Honestly, it came from the grading card video. So on this channel, we do a lot of data trends and analysis and deep dives, and one of the videos that we do every single month is we look at the previous month's grading results. So we look at PSA, CGC, SGC, Beckett, and we see what has gone on from an actual grading perspective there. It's incredible macro level information which lets us know what the hobby is actually doing. And in the last one that we just did, I saw some stuff in the Japanese market that made me scratch my head. I did some digging, and here I am today with a whole lot of data to share with you my opinion. Now, if all that stuff gets you excited, listen, we have an incredible group of subscribers here, and if this is your first time watching the channel, or if you hadn't hit that subscribe button yet, we would love it if you became a member and hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below, and if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. As a small channel, those three little things go a long way in helping us out. So without further ado, listen, let's get into some of the data I was talking about. And speaking of subscribers, thanks to an awesome subscriber, I got hooked up with this website right here, which shows you the average transaction price for Pokemon TCG cards by day, by month over the last couple years, which is awesome, right? Now, it also breaks it out between English and Japanese, right? So you have the orange line, which is English, you have the green line, which is Japanese, and you're gonna see a couple of really cool things here, right? Like, in all markets are cyclical, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're talking about investing markets. Heck, think about the fashion market, right? How many times have we seen 90s style come back into vogue, or seen 80s trends come back? Like, everything is cyclical, right? Things come in and out of favor all of the time, and that's why I thought this graph was really cool, and that's why I use this as kind of a piece of the pie when I'm talking about formulating my opinion on Japanese cards. So what you'll see right here is this. This is kind of pre the pandemic pump, right? Like, you will see that English cards, the orange line, were selling at a premium or selling for more compared to the green line, which is the Japanese cards, which was really interesting, right? Then you're going to see this period in time where we went through that crazy pandemic pump. Like, look how high that orange line got, you know, in the November range. Absolutely insane. However, most of us weren't touching it because we thought, hey, listen, this is Icarus flying too high to the sun. We all understand this is just crazy. This doesn't make any sense. Strangers are in my house buying Pokemon cards and selling them. So we stayed out of it. And then what happens, a lot of those strangers start to disappear, right? A lot of the people who either made their nickel or went bankrupt have started to exit the hobby. So we're starting to see that trend come back down and normalize to what we would expect. However, what's different between the green circle and the yellow circle is now you see the green line, right? You see Japanese cards are selling at a premium to English cards. Now, there's a couple different things you can say. You can say the pull rates are different in Japanese. You can say the sets are different. You can say the quality's better. We're actually going to go in a deep dive on quality here in just a minute. You can say whatever you want about that, but the fact of the matter is that pre-pandemic pump, English was at the premium. Post-pandemic pump, Japanese is at the premium. So that's something interesting. And then when everybody was asking me, like, hey, are you buying? Are you in? Are you both? Like, I have not been buying any Japanese cards at all. And that is because, to me, the market seems a little too hot. And if I don't understand something, number one, I don't invest in it no matter what. But number two, if I'm trying to figure something out and it's a hot market, I really stay away from it. Again, coming back to what I said earlier about things being cyclical. So when you look at this, for me, you know, if you're trying to get in at the value spot, buying Japanese pre-pandemic pump obviously would have been the way to go. None of us have a crystal ball. None of us could have projected that. None of us could have known that. But when we look at this data now, and if we understand that markets are cyclical now, we can use this to formulate our approach moving forward in the future, right? So before the pandemic pump would have been the time to buy Japanese cards. Post-pandemic pump, for me, I'm not touching them simply because I feel like the market is too hot. I feel like it's the in vogue thing. Everybody's piling, everybody's paying premiums for these cards. And for me, I'm just going to wait. I think there will be a point in time when the English goes over the Japanese and the Japanese comes down. And I love the artwork, and I think that they're absolutely stunning cards, and they're obviously of exceptional quality. So I will have some Japanese cards in my collection at some point in the future. For me, now is just not the time, right? I don't want to buy what is hot. I want to buy where I think there's fair value, and I think it has an opportunity to grow in the future. So I thought this was a really cool graph and something really cool to call out. Now, I want to get into what came from that grading video, which really gave me some pause and some concern. So this is what it was. Now, this tracks grading volume at PSA by week. Okay, so you will see that the PSA grading volume has been pretty steady, and then it spiked a little bit. Now you see, really, except for those 3 graphs on the far right, you'll see that it was on this downward trend trajectory. And then you'll see that little note right there where it says PSA Japan opening. So those of you who are unaware, Japan now has its own PSA grading facility. Now, it always had a small office there since 2018, but all of the actual grading was being done here in the United States. So the turnaround time was really long. Obviously, there's the risk of shipping it, on the cost of shipping it. Like, there was just a lot of barriers to the Japanese market having access to PSA. Even with all of those barriers, though, we know that there's still plenty of PSA graded Japanese cards. But I want you to look at this spike that happened as soon as the PSA grading facility in Japan opened. Look at that. It almost doubled. It was up 60% almost overnight, up 56,000 cards in weekly grading card volume as soon as that PSA center in Japan opened up. That is not something to take lightly. And I'm going to say this as well. If you've been watching the grading card videos, you know that Japanese cards have been a big chunk of the overall grading volume at PSA anyways. To begin with a ton of the cards, when we looked at the top 10 sets that were graded the most in the TCG space by PSA, there was no fewer than 3, and it's sometimes as high as 8 Japanese sets in that top 10 list. So I think it is safe to say that about 50% of all the cards that are being graded at PSA in the TCG space right now are probably Japanese. Like I said, that wasn't before the opening of the PSA grading facility in Japan. That is post. Look at the grading. Just look at these last. It is the highest ever since this started. This goes all the way back to December of 2022. So we're looking at 8 months of grading volume. None of it was ever as high as when the PSA Japan grading center opened. This is going to have a fundamental impact on the cards, obviously, right? Everything is supply and demand, okay? So when the supply increases, if the demand doesn't increase along with it, then prices become depreciated, right? Because that's what you have to do. The other thing too is there are people out there, there are companies out there, there are organizations out there that grade thousands and thousands and thousands of cards per month. Hard stop. Like, we all know it. That's not a secret. There are things out there, people out there who grade thousands and thousands of cards per month. You and I, if I want to flip a card, I want to grade it, I want to flip it, and I want to make 20, 30, 40 bucks. Like, I want to make a meaningful percentage on my card. When you're flipping thousands and thousands and thousands of cards a month, your profit margin can be much smaller. So those PSA 10s, it becomes a race to the bottom because they care more about getting the card out of their inventory and selling it, recouping that money, and reinvesting that into more cards to get graded than they care about pricing a buy it now card at $20 or even a reasonable price and having to wait 3, 4, 5 weeks for somebody maybe to pull the trigger. They don't care about that. They're going to go to eBay, they're going to sort by the card, they're going to sort by buy it now, lowest first, and they're going to price theirs either at that price or lower. And that is a very dangerous space to be in, right? Because you never want a big group of people racing to the bottom. And now we have this huge influx of Japanese graded cards and Japanese PSA 10s, especially those special illustration rares, especially the full art trainers, right? They have been selling for a premium. And now I have a strong feeling that we're going to see more and more of them coming into the market. So I feel like the prices are going to be under a lot of pressure. So with that being said, I also thought it was really cool to talk about the quality and to talk about the number of cards that have been being graded. And this idea again came up from another awesomely brilliant subscriber who was asking me about V-Star Universe versus Crown Zenith. And it happened to ask that question right at the end of the Crown Zenith video and after I did the grading card video. And I thought this was really cool. You look at V-Star Universe, right, which is Japanese version of Crown Zenith. V-Star Universe has 194,000 cards graded at PSA. Crown Zenith has 93.5 thousand, right? V-Star Universe has twice as many cards graded. Listen, I understand Japan gets the cards first. I understand that there's a couple month lag. So any of these Japanese grading numbers have a couple of months of head start. But I will also say this, when we look at the English versions, when you look at it on PSA, which is where I pull it all, I pull this data straight from PSA, no middleman, no nothing. This comes straight from PSA. The PSA English versions, the non-Japanese ones, it includes French, it includes German, it includes Spanish. Now those aren't a big number. There's not a ton of cards that are graded in those other languages. But I want you to say this, there's the Japanese graded section, and then there's everything else. So the Japanese graded V-Star universe is at 194,000. Everything else is at 93,500. Then I thought, well, that could just be an anomaly. Let's look at some of these other sets. And it kind of ended up being, right? I looked at Silver Tempest and I looked at the Japanese equivalent of Silver Tempest. I tried to look at some recent sets, right? Silver Tempest has 52,000 cards graded, right? The Japanese equivalent has about 67,000 cards graded. So not as big of a gap as V-Star Universe and Crown Zenith, but still it is a big gap. And now the PSA Grading Center is open, so that gap could continue to grow. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. Then you look down here at Scarlet and Violet, right? The newest one that's out. Just the Violet set in Japanese has graded more than the whole English Scarlet and Violet. Again, this is a very recent picture. Scarlet and Violet hasn't been out that long. You know, the Japanese versions have a couple month head start, but still, I don't know if it's a, 23,000 card head start? Like, is Scarlet and Violet going to double in terms of grading volume over the next couple months, especially since, you know, we looked at a video on Sunday where we saw the Miriam Special Illustration Rare from Scarlet and Violet isn't even on the top 10 cards exchanged hands the most in TCG Player. God, I love when all these videos reference each other and meld together into one and paint this awesome picture of Pokemon collecting awesomeness. But anyway, so yeah, it's just interesting to me. And the biggest concern to me is that I feel like Japanese cards, which is supported by data, already had a bit of a head start in the grading space. And now we're going to see infinitely more. I have a feeling those Japanese grading centers by PSA are just going to be working overtime. Then we talk about the quality here. So this is a graph again from the grading card video where we look at individual cards and their all-time gem rate. So we'll start at the top, right? And I'm not going to call out individual card names. We're just going to say Japanese or English, right? Top card, Japanese, all-time gem rate, 89%. Second card, English, all-time gem rate, 58%. Third card, English, 58%. Fourth card, English, 40%. Fifth card Japanese, 94%. Sixth card Japanese, 85%. English, 37. Japanese, 89. English, 29. English, 66. I went through this exercise in that obnoxiously long explanation to simply say that the quality of Japanese cards are so high. Not only are we going to see this huge influx of grading volume, but we are going to see a tremendous influx of PSA 10s into the market. It's just a fact, right? Like they do it too good. There's all these. I will share you this is my thought. I'm not sure, I want the quality in the US to be better, but I don't know if I want it on Japanese level, simply because I like a little exclusivity. I like a little chase to the cards. Like, I get my heart broken. I pulled an Iono, not the special illustration rare, but I pulled the Iono full art with my family, and it was off center. And it was sad to me, but guess what? It doesn't take away from the fact that I pulled it with my family. I have it in my personal collection, and I think the card is absolutely fire, and we love it, and it's a great memory, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm not out there hunting on eBay or hunting in my local card shops or hunting all other places to try and find a well-centered one to send out and get graded, which I can keep in a different section of my personal collection, or I can sell in the future if it appreciates in value. Like, I think there's just different ways to collect and there's different ways to find joy in this hobby. And I do have some concern if you're talking about 80% of all of these Japanese cards that are being flooded into the Japanese PSA grading center are going to be PSA 10s, like, then it takes away the allure of a PSA 10. It takes away the special. It takes away, you know, the exclusivity of it. If there's 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 PSA 10s, to me, it's just really going to put a lot of downward pressure on the price. Now, I know I've been talking about a lot of the downward pressure and the way it really scares me. So I'll tell you this, the regular sets, anything that you can buy in English and in the US, I am concerned about the long-term price potential for the Japanese sets. I know that the pull rates are different. I know that the special illustration rares are a little better. I know that there's a depth in the cards and the artwork. I just know that there's a lot of things which can help those Japanese cards still perform well. I'm not saying they're going to go to zero. I'm not saying they're going to be worthless, but I'm just saying compared to the premium that they're going for right now, I have a lot of concerns about them being able to maintain that over the long run, simply because I think the market is going to be flooded with them. Now, what I do think is awesome. And what I am incredibly bullish about in the Japanese space is all of the different cards that we can get from there. I love that they get unique. I love that they get crazy. I love the whole poncho line. Like, there's special boxes and containers and premium I don't know. There's all kinds of special stuff that you can only get in the Japanese market that you can't get here in the US because it's the birthplace of Pokemon. We should never forget that. I love the fact that if you want to get in on a set early before it hits in the US, you have the chance to get it from Japan. I love the fact that the cards are really, really beautiful. We talked about the depth, we talked about the vibrance of the cards. Like, there are just some things that set some Japanese cards apart, and I think that is always going to help them perform strongly. I think that there are opportunities to do really well in the Japanese market, and I think the Japanese market is always going to go strong. I think what I really wanted to emphasize is this. I think if you are looking for certain Japanese cards in a PSA 10 slab, and they're just a common, everyday, run-of-the-mill set that's being printed, I don't think you need to rush out and buy it right now, because I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity now, and certainly in the futures. That grading center has only been up and running for like 4 weeks now, so give it another couple months. I wouldn't rush into anything Japanese unless it's a Japanese exclusive card, and even then, I think the Japanese exclusive cards, we're going to see more of them graded. Again, taking down a lot of the barriers, not having to ship overseas, right? Not having to come all the way to the US to get graded. They're cutting a lot of the barriers down. But I do think that there are going to be more of these in the population. I think some of these are going to come to a much more normal price, and I think that's exciting because a lot of us as collectors, there's a lot of these cards I would really like to have in my collection, but I'm not going to spend $3,000, $4,000 on a PSA 10 Japanese Mario Pikachu, right? I'm just not going to do it. I'd love to if I had the money, but I don't. So anyways, as much as I'm saying there's challenges in the Japanese market, I'm also thinking that there's still some opportunities, and I think as us as collectors, I think that there's going to be a great period of time where we were able to get some great cardboard from Japan at some awesome prices. So listen, everybody, hey, if you enjoyed this kind of content, if you like the data to back up the opinions, you have questions or comments, drop them down below. If you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up, and if you aren't a member of this channel, we'd love it if you joined this crazy group, so hit that subscribe button. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you. Bye.